Welcome to the Supporters Fund, Ask an Angel. I'm your host, Jeffery Potvin, and today we'd like to welcome Sascha. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, I can say we're very excited to dive in and learn more about yourself and have this great conversation. And after our conversation and having a bunch of research and going through a lot of stuff, I'm going to say that I think you were actually born to work with startups and invest. Through your career, everything you've done just seems to really work around the early stage startup scene. So it's amazing that we get to dive into all this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I can start. I was not born into the startup scene because when I was studying in Hamburg in the 90s, I wanted to become a journalist. So I studied political sciences and journalism. And I even started to work in the radio and then TV, basically news. And but then I found that, journalism at the end is talking about what other people do all the time, which is interesting. You get to know people, very interesting people who do interesting stuff. But after a while, I thought I'd rather do the interesting stuff myself and that other people talk about me. That was my dream at the end. And I had the great opportunity at one time to start working in a business consultancy that was working around media. So it was a Swedish consultancy when all the internet started, and they helped basically editorials and all kinds of media companies to digitalize. This sounds like very strange now, but back then it was like 97, 98. All the media companies, and Hamburg was a media capital in Germany, they were under pressure. They needed to basically, back then it was, you said they had to go on the internet, or they had to convert their business into, or part of their business, they had to be connected to the internet. So today we would say they had to digitalize their business model. So that was the connection between my journalism and business. And I started, back then it was called media consultant, and then I was at the end business consultant. And I saw a lot of interesting companies, like we worked, for example, for Battlesman, which is one of the biggest media companies in the world. And we worked, on the one hand, we tried to find ways to offer their content, their print titles on the internet with different services around, which is now common sense. But back then, basically, we had to think about what else do we have to offer as added value around the content, because it was not just around putting the same content you had in the print magazine on the internet, but that's where we developed. For example, for all the business titles, we developed interactive added value like portfolios. You could watch and stuff like that. I also was involved in the intent of Battlesman to build up an Amazon competitor. Battlesman back then was much bigger than Amazon, and they built up something that was called BOL, Battlesman Online, because you have to know that Battlesman had a big branch of book selling. So they're still one of the biggest editorials in the world. And so they thought, we are the right company to sell books. We have to do it much better than Amazon, because we have invented all this. They have invented, for example, the book clubs. That there's book clubs all over the world, whether you subscribe. And there I found out for the first time why big corporates have a problem in innovation, and why companies like Amazon can basically move much faster and create much more innovation in a short time than this huge multinational company Battlesman. And from their failure, and from the failure of our project where I was involved in, I had my first big learnings that how innovation should work, and that let's say big organizations and these processes that they were working with are not suitable for innovation. Yeah. So, but my story then went on because everybody back then, in that time, in the end of the 90s, in my surrounding, they were dreaming of building up a startup. That was the big first, let's say, wave of founders in Germany, where people like the founders of Zalando, for example, and Rocket Internet, they founded their first company, and one of their stories was they built up a company, an eBay clone, and sold it after 4 months to eBay for, I can't even remember, it was millions. Big sum, let's say 10 million, nothing to live forever, but that was like one of the stories that were told, and everybody thought, we want to build up a startup, we want to be startup entrepreneurs. So two colleagues of mine, they started a company it was like an online lottery company connecting with the state lotteries, a reseller of state lottery in Germany. There was no such thing. Lottery is still one of the most it's a very analog business. It's state owned, so it's very slow. And they thought, we just built up a reseller. We've learned this from a project that we've done together for the Swedish state lottery. And Sweden back then, and still is, was always ahead of us in digitalization and let's say technology also. So they learned from this project and built up a company. I was still too happy in my business consultancy. I was really happy with my work, and I thought this is the best workplace ever. With a great office. It was in Germany, we were like the kings because we were the people who knew about internet, and we flew business class all around Europe. And I was young, and I thought I'm like I'm so lucky to be here. So I didn't quite understand why they would leave all this and build up their own company. But after 1 year, they approached me and said, "Yeah, why don't you come work with us?" And I was thinking about it, and back then I wanted to go to abroad. I wanted to work abroad. That was one of my objectives, to work somewhere else. And one of the possibilities I had was Spain, because I knew some Spanish. And so I thought about what can I do to really add something interesting to their business. And so I was looking at the Spanish market regarding the state lottery and the regulation. And I thought it was a good market to build up a branch of their company. So we negotiated, and I got a very, very small share of their company. But still, I was feeling like an entrepreneur and built up the branch in Spain, which was a big adventure for me. I didn't have a clue about how building up a company. I was just jumping into the cold water, as they say in Germany. So and it was big fun. And I started in 2001. And when I already had some ideas how to start, and we negotiated a budget to build up the branch. The Twin Towers were attacked, and so basically everybody was very much afraid of what could happen in the next years. The German, the new economy, how they called it in Germany, was in a big crisis. Stock prices fell down, and so basically the consequences of that was that I was in Spain, had a little office shared in the basement, and didn't have any budget. I had my salary, but nothing else. So, and they said, yeah, you can stay there for a while. We will go on paying your salary, but you have to find your own way. Okay. Which is, which was kind of frustrating, but it helped me to learn something that later on became more or less mainstream, the lean startup approach. So, because I was there, we had plans to build up a big platform, because in lottery, every market is different. There's different products, different regulations. So basically, I had to build up a new platform. That was my idea. Yeah, and spend around €500,000 just for the first setup of the platform, because I thought I need all the products to be really be able to approach the market and say I'm an online lottery platform. So I needed all the lotteries and all the services, and of course it had to be perfect to start with. But when they cut my budget, I was kind of bored. I started at first. I waited, and then I thought, let's do something. And I had a great team, because I basically hired those people that dropped out all the new economy companies here in Spain, because I was in the middle of a crisis. Everybody shut down, and I was sharing office with a German company that was basically reducing stuff to a minimum, and later on closed down. And I took the best people of this team, and then we sat together and said, let's do something on our own with low budget. What we did is we used existing software, which is nowadays basically the way to go. There's so much software as a service around, but back then there wasn't. What we had was Excel, Access, which was a database from Microsoft. And yeah, what we did was basically build an HTML facade in front, and in the back end we had Excels and Access and manual work. And we started with one simple product, which was a subscription to the basic lottery here in Spain. Yeah. And it was really, really successful. So as a subscription, because it was impossible for us to do a real-time business. So you buy it today, and then tonight you take part in the lottery. So the subscription was, you bought your subscription today and you started next week. Yeah, that was something we could handle in the back end manually. And so we learned a lot about the customer. We learned a lot about marketing, and we generated cash, which helped us to then build step by step a platform. That was the greatest learning I've ever had as an entrepreneur, because I understood that if I've had the money that was promised, I probably would have failed. For sure, because all the years afterwards, and I saw so many people with this idea. We have to build up first a huge product, and then we go and talk to the market. And and I saw myself. Yeah, I saw a lot of companies, successful companies, who started like this as well, and then. Basically it became mainstream with the books, Eric Ries and Price and all the others. So this was my, let's say my basic learning as a manager, because I had a small share of the company. And then I had to learn another very difficult lesson, because the company in Germany, they did an IPO. Basically, they realized all their dreams. They built up a company in 2000, went public in 2004, and had both of my colleagues then had 30 million in cash in their bank account and another 60 million in shares. So, and I had, I think, 0.1%, which they bought from me before the IPO, saying that they had to clear all the cap table. Back then, it was money for me. It was interesting money for me, and I had a good salary, and I had a good bonus and stuff, and I was happy. But I didn't really negotiate hard enough, believing that this company has a great future. In fact, the company still exists. It's now called Zeal Ventures, and it's the world market leader for online lottery, digital lottery products in the world, and they're investing in new types of products around lottery.
It's still a very common thing that occurs when companies are going IPO or founders are being bought, and it's a tough learning, but it's actually a great learning that you have that, because now you can, while working with these companies, you can kind of give them the gauge of, you're going to be faced with these things and this is going to happen. And I think that's pretty valuable. And I can obviously on the same side of it speak from the same kind of experience. And it's interesting that you feel that this is the right way and you're like, you're right, I should do this. But at the time, it's the lack of knowledge. And, it's the same thing when you're signing a contract with for a new employment job or a new partnership, and you say, I don't need to go to the lawyer on this, and you'll just kind of scoot through it. So you kind of got the different type of learning, but at the same time, if you learn this in school that said, hey, and don't ever sign a contract and make sure that you always go to a lawyer. It's going to cost you money now, but it's going to benefit you later. Maybe that would probably help all of us, but we tend to learn on the fly, and sometimes it does become a tougher learn. But I guess as you were going through this lean startup phase, which I think is the most valuable experience anybody could have, and it sounds like you really pulled your way through this, is it kind of goes to the way startups work today, right? Which is you really need to get in there, roll your sleeves up, learn all the jobs, learn all the roles in the business, be really lean, because as you start to grow, you become further and further away from what you first started. And that learning is what's going to allow you to keep steering the ship. And if you don't take that learning, then you have a high chance of failure because you never really spent time learning what it took to build that company from the ground up.
Yeah. So, of course, it's good to, on the one hand, the lesson is you have to think about contracts and lawyers. On the other side, I was a very bad negotiator at that time. Yeah, because I was I felt so happy with what I had. Yeah, I just didn't really think about what what kind of value I created, because back that time, for example, the company was active in Germany and in Spain. So you can imagine in the IPO story how much how valuable was the fact that they were able to basically scale up the business and start it in another jurisdiction and market. So I don't know, but I always think it's at least a third of the IPO valuation might have come from this fact, and that's something I created. So, but that's on the other hand, another learning. Just like let's pass. Don't think about it too much, and go ahead and think about how you can do something better in the future. So then after the IPO, I thought it's time to go. And I also thought it's time for me to start up something myself, all alone. And so I found a partner who he was working in the company as well, and he was also very keen on starting up, and we found that we are quite complementary, yeah, because he had a very tough time in the UK. He was working for Marks and Spencer, and he had they had a great managing training program. So he was like a real manager training program where they've learned negotiation, where they've learned, for example, turning around of companies. And so he was like a very well-trained manager. And I was like, I was a do-it-yourself startup guy, maybe creative, maybe I knew quite a lot about strategies, digital strategies and stuff like that, but I never had a manager training. Yeah, so that was, and he was Spanish. Okay, so he was trained in the UK, but he was Spanish. So he also knew how the Spanish businessmen work and how they think, and so that was quite a good complementary team. And then we thought, let's try it, and we built up a company that was working in the same space, lotteries, but completely B2B. We didn't want to build up a competition of my other company, even though I didn't have a non-compete, like a clear non-compete, and but it was B2B. So we wanted to do business to government first, basically selling to the state lotteries our technology and our knowledge, marketing and digitalization of the state lotteries, and learning that this is too long of a sales cycle. We started offering it also to private companies, and so we built lottery channels for Telefonica, which is the biggest telecommunications company, one of the biggest in Europe. We built for a lottery channel for El Corte Inglés, which is like the Marks and Spencer or like big department stores here in Spain. And for El País, El Mundo, the biggest media titles here, and print media. And it worked really well. Then at the end, we ended up licensing a big brand, lottery brand here, which is the Golden Witch in Spanish, La Bruja de Oro. And there it really skyrocketed our sales. And we reached, in our best times, sales of 100 million euros. It's a small margin business, but we adding value to all the purchase of lotteries, like subscriptions or syndicates and stuff like that. We managed to get 20% margin of that, and so it was a great business. We earned really well, but we had a problem. There's another learning I had, because at the beginning we got in a strategic investor from Germany, who basically they gave us 2 million in cash and 1 million in kind, which was their technological platform. So we had a kickstart to the market. They also were working business to government and also business to business. So it was a perfect fit. And so we thought, how do we? And they took a majority share of our company, because we had a PowerPoint, and so they gave us 2 million cash, 1 million kind. So there was no way to say you get a 20% or something like that. So they got a majority. But we thought we were so clever that we maintained basically control of the company, and we thought, how can we make liquid our 36% or something like that we have in the company. And we negotiated a very clever exchange, because they were stock listed in Germany. And we thought, at one time, after 2 years, we can exchange our shares that are not liquid into liquid shares on the stock exchange. And so we developed a way to calculate our value based on their value in the stock exchange. So we said turnover. It was like 3 parameters: turnover, EBIT, and profit, or something like that. Yeah. Margin and profit. I don't really. The turnover, gross margin, and profit. Yeah. So so we put together both sides, and then we would know how much our company is worth in Spain, and we would exchange into their shares, which that we could then sell on the stock exchange. But what we didn't have in mind is what happens if their performance is really bad and ours is really good. That was happening. So they even had a negative result when we started when basically the phase after 2 years, when we started the vesting time, when we could exchange, they had a negative result and they were underperforming. So on the one hand, their value on the stock exchange was very low, not very appealing for us to exchange. And on the other hand, if you have a negative parameter, how do you get this together? Yeah. So you have 10 turnover, 5 EBIT, and -3. And how does this work together? And so we started to argue with them. Yeah. And so we started to have a worse relationship and over the years, because it didn't really get better. And we didn't know how to, we were trapped. Yeah. So we had a great company doing quite a good business, and a lot of people were interested, but we couldn't sell. Yeah. And because nobody would buy our 36%. And we couldn't basically execute our clause in the contract. And so it took us 4 years to argue and think about what we do. And then at the end, we bought their shares back. Right? Because they were so, at one point, they were so in need of cash that we took the chance, took some loans, and bought their shares back. And then we...
that's a good thing, right?
Huh?
I think that works out quite well. That, in time when things are going the wrong way, you guys were analyzing it and probably obviously hitting walls and trying to understand which are out and how do you move out. And the real thing was, how do I take back my business? And it sounds like you took the right approach in stepping into the business and finding a way to remove the bad and bring in more of the good. So it sounds like, again, more challenges. But what I love about all the things that you've been sharing through your journey in business is that all of these are so relatable to startups today, and it's not something that just happened because it was in the early 2000s and you'll never see this again. But a lot of these occur quite often and quite frequently in startups today, which is anybody that's building a company, they're going to go through these types of maneuvers that are happening. They're going to have business partners. And you brought up a lot of great things, even with the one part you brought up about your business partner, your initial business partner, and how you had very complementary skills. And what I like about that is that you're already going into it looking at, how do I find somebody that has skills that I don't, so that we're more effective and we can benefit the growth. And I think that's a very valuable point, because a lot of startups, when they get into partnerships, a lot of them do fall apart. And sometimes they forget that you need to look at those little pieces of partnerships and relationships, because they're going to make a big difference when you're growing a company. And it sounds like you did that, and you put together a great partnership with someone that you trusted, and you guys found a way to leverage the business going forward. So lots of great pieces of advice that you're sharing. So this is great.
Yeah, that's basically one. All these things and now help me a lot when I work with startups, because there's always, for example, the question: shall I take in a strategic investor or just a financial investor? Both have pros and cons, and of course it depends a lot on your position when you're negotiating. It depends a lot on where you want to go. But at that time, I thought we're in a very regulated environment, and we at that time it was not so easy to find software pieces, software as a service, and platforms you can use. So we had to build up things from scratch. And for me, it was a quick start to use an existing platform that a strategic investor brings in. But yeah, you always have to. It's not a clear binary thing. And the other thing is, how do you negotiate with those people that that bring things in kind, and how do you make liquid your shares? That's always a problem. For me as a business angel, it's very difficult to to take care that at one point I can sell, because as a business angel you enter into a business, and typically when you do investment rounds, everybody wants you to stay. Yeah, you typically bring in your reputation. You say this is a great company, and then you can't say before they send their money and by the way, I'm leaving. So
because that's something that isn't very common at all, and I think there's been many people that have tried to figure out how to tackle that concern. Is that as your business is growing, a lot of investors who said, I took you from a pre-seed to a Series A. Can you exit me out now so I can keep doing this? So your commerce or your equities are tied up until that company goes public or is bought or sold. So you're right, that is there for a long time. And I think that a lot of early stage investors would look at, would somebody be interested to take me out? Is there a secondary market that would be interesting in these shares? So there probably is a solution out there somewhere. It has been quite tough, but I'm assuming with NFTs and all of these blockchain and everything else that's going on in the world, there's probably a way to be more liquid in the future on how you can start selling your shares at a Series A or a Series B and trying to move out. And secondary markets do help, but I think there is options that are coming out. So now just to kind of move what you've been doing into today and all the great things that you're part of, so many amazing groups, and I'm not sure how you have time to rest with the non-for-profits, working for the schools, and you're spending a lot of time, and I'll call it like getting backstage, helping educate entrepreneurs so that they can overcome a lot of what you've gone through, and maybe not just what you've gone through, but things that you see in the market and being able to go through these hurdles. Maybe we can share just a quick summary of, with BNC10 and the networks that you're building. I think it would be great to learn a little bit about that for sure, if you could share a little bit on that.
Okay, so on the one hand, after I made some money, I started to invest in startups in a way which back then we called venture builder, together with my partner, because we had a lot of access to bank loans, because we had a great relationship to all the banks in Spain. And so we thought, we have financing, we have knowledge, and so we helped build up startups in a venture builder model, where we had a big office and we took the entrepreneurs into our office and helped them with marketing, with financing, and even with technology, so that they could focus on their business and their product. This was great. I learned a lot, but it's something that is not very scalable, and it has a lot of downsides. The advantage is you can use the cash because we built up a structure where we were majority shareholders in all the companies, and we used the cash from here to there. But when something goes wrong in one company, then the whole system has a problem. And it's not scalable, because we ended up having an office with 150 people, and just too chaotic. So we had to basically resolve this, selling parts into joint ventures, closing down other parts. And so then I thought it's much better for me to invest in startups that independently, but in those startups where I can really add value, but not with a structure, but with my network and with my knowledge, and where I can step in, take a position like a board member, but really make a difference. That's then my thesis at the end. And in the meantime, I started working as a mentor in IE Business School, which is a very famous business school here in Europe, always in the top 5 in the world for the international MBA. And they built up something that is called Venture Lab. It's something they have seen in the MIT, Harvard, Stanford. So an incubator on campus, which is not only for those people for the MBA, but also for alumni and the whole ecosystem, and some really good people to help incubating, accelerating their small business ideas. And so I had the chance to be part of the beginning of that, and that was really helpful for me to learn again from those people, because when you're mentoring, you probably do have the same experience. When you're mentoring, you learn as a mentor almost as much or more than the mentee, if you do it right and if you select the right people. So there I had very, very bright people from all over the world with great enthusiasm, and I always learn a lot from them. So there I start building, let's say, deal flow over the whole ecosystem of this university, which is, let's say, one of the 2 top universities in Spain. And on the other side, I started working with accelerators. One of the accelerators I really like is an EdTech accelerator called SecLab. It belongs to a big company of private schools and universities, and they are very open to innovation, and they have their own accelerator for EdTech startups. That's a lot of fun, and I'm mentoring there. So that's a little bit where my deal flow comes from. I'm also a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. I don't know if it's more famous in the States and in Canada than here in Spain, but it's an American organization, 16,000 members, all entrepreneurs, owners of a company that at least has a turnover of $1 million. That's the threshold, and so mid-size entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, a great group of people, and together with them, we organize every year the Global Student Entrepreneurs Award. That's also great fun, where we have people from 54 countries competing. They are all students that build up their own company, very bright people. And so there are also, I find a lot of talent for either for investment or for startups that I know that ask me to connect for talent. So that's more or less the work I do pro bono. But my main activity nowadays is I invest in, let's say, up to 3-4 startups a year. But I really step in, and even in sometimes I'm operational. So, for example, at this moment, I'm working for one startup opening a new market, the British market, and we want to go to Germany as well. So there I'm, you could say, like a managing director. What I did here in Spain, I do first strategic partnerships, and I set up the whole thing and open up the market. But this is the most operational I do. Typically, I'm a board member, and I'm there basically on the side of and very much aligned with the founder. Yeah? When the founder, they call me most of the times when they're in crisis, when something happens, when they're afraid, when they don't know what to do, when they don't know even how to negotiate with their own partners. So that's, I think, the most valuable part. And the other part is, connecting people, connecting businesses, and helping with fundraising, helping with, I mean, a startup founder is typically overwhelmed with everything. He has no idea most of the things. He's never done what he has to do. The only thing he has is a great attitude and the capacity to listen, and but also to go straight towards their goals. But typically they don't. There's a lot of things they don't know about, and so it's I try to help them there, but always very much aligned. So I take a share. Typically, I enter startups where I can take some reasonable share, maybe 5 to 10%. So it has to be a startup with a low valuation, or where they really accept my added value and they say, I want you on board. And it's not so much the money I put in, but basically I look for startups where they value my money double. Okay, just at the beginning, where they say, okay, you get shares as if you would invest double the money. That's more or less my rule. I also try to get always somebody else on board, so that I have some feedback from somebody I really trust on this, so I don't go crazy investing in startups just for because I love the idea. And and on the other side, I'm quite agnostic regarding the topic. It has to be something that is interesting for me, where I can learn. Okay, so for example, this year I entered a startup that is working with artificial intelligence and crypto currencies. Both topics I really like, and I really find interesting. I don't know too much about, so I'm learning a lot on the crypto markets and also on blockchain in general, how this will change our lives in the next years, and artificial intelligence, the same thing. So this is basically my main driver. But it could be any kind of topic. Typically, the startup has to be with relatively low valuation. I can't enter a startup that is already valuing itself 5 million euros or dollars or whatever. That's not my field. My expertise is from seed, from friends and family financing to seed, more or less. Yeah, I typically want to see that they have some financing, that they were able to raise something, even though it's among their friends and family, and I take them to seed and beyond, depending on what's the plan. Because seed financing is typically then when you need metrics and you need traction, and so that's the most difficult part.
Your approach is very well received, certainly in today's world, where a lot of startups go in and they don't get the mentorship, the coaching that they need in order to survive and to be the best. So I do really appreciate seeing and hearing how you attack this early stage. And what is really interesting about this is that I'm going to call it deep investing, because you're going in and, like you said, you're not only just putting in capital, you're also putting in a lot of time, and you're working in the ranks of that business to help them move quicker. And I think that's very admirable, and it works. works quite well, and those are the types of companies that we want to invest in, because we want to see that they have a strong management team, that they have strong founders, that they have a strong structure on where they're going, even if it is just a friends and family around. All of those things make a big difference in supporting the growth of that company. We're going to kind of transition a little bit based off of kind of where we are now, and I wanted to ask one kind of quick question before we dive into the quick questions. And we've learned a lot. You've got a lot of experience and a lot of things you've done, which is phenomenal. Is there, if I was to kind of dive into a case study, if you were to talk to a case study that you could share about a founder or what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and you've given it a couple of businesses that you're working with now, and we're kind of looking for that one, story that just says, this is what it takes. And I worked with this founder 10 years ago, and we didn't think they were going to make it, and she just blew it out of the water, and today they're a massive firm. Is there a kind of a story that really resonates with you that you can share?
Okay, yeah, and one of the strongest founders I'm working with right now is he's building up a company that is also around the lottery field, but he wants to do, or he does house raffles, which is something that is quite common in Australia, I think, and also in Canada, always with good causes. Basically partnering up with charities, and it's like a fundraising tool for charities. And so he's a guy. He comes from marketing, performance marketing, lead generation, very, very systematic way to work. And he is, for me, kind of the ideal founder, because he's very, very, he has a very strong attitude. He knows exactly where he wants to go, and he knows exactly where he wants to be, but he's flexible in terms of the path to get there. Okay, that's very important, because typically we all learn this American dream thing that you only have to believe in your dream, and don't let anybody tell you that you're a fool. And I think that's not correct, because you shouldn't fall in love with your dream. You should fall in love with basically, or with the idea. You should fall in love with where you want to be in 5 years. But the idea you have right now should be, that should be kind of flexible, because you don't even know if it works out or not. What you have to be very strict upon is going forward to get to the point where you want to be in 5 years. Right? And he has this quite clear. For example, at the beginning, I mean, he came up to me with an idea, and I'm quite familiar with the regulatory space here in Europe when it comes to those things, because lottery, and even if it's charity, it's all very regulated. And he came up with an idea, and I told him, I don't think this works. This is not legal, what you're doing. And I know it, because I even took part in the regulatory process here in Spain, being in a lobby group for to help politicians, the politics to design the law. But he said, no, I bet somehow I get this going. Yeah. Because other people would say, yeah, there's somebody who has a good reputation, he has great knowledge in that sphere, and says this, what you're coming up with now is just not legal. Yeah, you can't do this. I didn't tell him that he should leave it. I said, yeah, if you find a way, that's great. And I think also that I'm a perfect match for you, because you don't have any idea of this space. I do. Yeah. So I stepped into the advantage, knowing that what he was planning to do right now is not going to happen. Yeah. But I was curious how he gets away with it. And so we've been together for 2 years now, and it turned out that, in Spain, this is very difficult. It's not a scalable business. We have to turn it into a B2B and pivot completely with the business model. And the real market for us is the UK. So now we're in the UK, and that's a great market. We have a great regulatory space for us there. But of course, along the way, there were so many obstacles. And we got, several times we got the messages from the regulatory body. And here in Spain, they're very unpleasant, they don't talk much, and they say you have to close down your business and stuff like that. So I had a lot of calls from him, but he like being really really afraid. And but he is this person that he listens, but he still has his own strong opinion on things, but he's able to listen. And has a lot of energy, and he knows exactly that he would never doubt that in 3-4 years' time he will build up a great company.
Because that's what the world is all about. It's sticking to your guns, understanding that there's an outcome, finding the right people to get behind you, like yourself, and then having that support mechanism. So when things get tough, he's reaching out to you and having that debate, that discussion. But at the end of the day, he's driving forward, and that's what entrepreneurship's all about. It's knowing where you want to go, and you might take 12 paths to get there, but you're going to fight it and do whatever you can. And in your case, what I love about this story too is it's not just about building a company in one jurisdiction or one country, but you guys realized that the roadblocks were just too big in the country you're in Spain, and you actually switched countries, and that's brilliant, because a lot of founders will just fail and walk away when they don't realize that there's 197 countries. There is a country out there that will accept and need the solution that you spent 3 or 4 years building, and it's not worth dropping it and walking away. And sometimes it's the fear of, well, I can't operate in another country. Being European Union and whatnot in the area, that's a lot of value, but there's still risk everywhere. And I do appreciate the fact that you guys took that moment to figure out, hey, maybe we can work in this area, and it's taking off and getting into a space that's supporting you.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions. So the way this works is you'll pick one or the other, and this is coming from the investor standpoint, from yourself on when you're looking at companies. So ready to roll?
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Okay, so founder or co-founder?
Co-founder.
Unicorn or 4-year 10x exit?
Depends a little bit on my liquidity, but I would say 4-year 10x exit.
Love it. Tech or consumer product goods?
Definitely technology.
NFTs, non-fungible tokens, or the Web 3.0?
NFTs.
AI or blockchain?
That's a difficult one. At the moment, I would say blockchain. I really believe that this will change the world like nothing else.
I wholeheartedly agree. First-time founder or a second or third-time founder?
Second and third-time founder.
First money in or Series A?
Series A would be great.
Okay. Angel or VC?
Angel.
Board seat or observer?
Board seat.
Lead or follow?
That's a difficult one. I've had experiences with both. That's difficult to. It's not binary. But I would say follow.
Okay.
Follow and invent and innovate.
Perfect. Equity or interest payments?
Equity.
Okay. Favorite part of investing?
Spend good times with the founder.
Okay. Number of companies invested per year?
3 to 4.
Okay. Any preferred terms when investing?
Terms on investing, yeah, equity, typically with an equity kicker on objectives that of added value that I can bring in.
Verticals of focus?
No verticals. My focus is on companies that generate cash quite soon.
Okay. And then 2 qualities a startup needs in order to stand out.
Definitely the team. Definitely. And of course, that everybody says that, but that's probably the main quality of a good business angel is to distinguish between the winning team and the others. And the other is what I just said. It should be a business model that is able to generate cash quite soon, because that's the only way you can survive in tough times. And I don't like startups that have to raise money every 3 months.
All right, we're going to jump into the personal side. Book or movie?
Book.
Superman or Batman?
I'm not sure if I understand this question right now, but
which one would you choose? Either the book or the movie, Superman or Batman? Which one do you reference yourself to be closer to?
In the book.
Well, just in general. So the questions are more personal. So which one do you reference yourself? So would you rather side with Batman or would you rather side with Superman?
Superman.
Okay. Restaurant or picnic?
Restaurant.
5 minutes with Bezos or Oprah?
5 minutes with Bezos.
Climb a mountain or go to the beach?
Climb a mountain.
Bike or run?
Bike.
Big Mac or chicken McNuggets?
Chicken.
Trophy or money?
What was the first thing?
Trophy or money?
Trophy.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Camera or mobile phone?
Mobile phone.
King or rich?
Rich. I don't want to be king now these days. It's a tough time.
Concert or amusement park?
Concert.
Fortune cookie, birthday cake?
Fortune cookie.
TED Talk or book reading?
Difficult one. It's complementary. But yeah, TED Talk, I would say.
Okay. Most famous person that pops in your mind right now?
Elon Musk.
Perfect. First brand that pops in your mind?
Apple.
Just for numbers, I will say that 60% of people that I've interviewed say Apple. Favorite movie and character that you would play in that movie?
Okay. That's not so easy to answer. It has to be a favorite movie, I know. I really like what's the name of it? Kevin Spacey, American.
Yep.
It's not American Beauty. Yeah, it's not really a hero, but I really like this movie.
It's a good movie.
And I would replace Kevin Spacey because he's kind of unpopular now.
I didn't realize that, but it is a good movie. And now that with your reference, I'm going to watch that one again. Favorite book?
Favorite book. I really like Hermann Hesse. I don't know if you know this guy, is a German author. And one of his books is called Siddhartha. It's
but I'm going to look it up.
It's kind of a, parable. I don't know how you translate this. It's not a fairy tale. It's like a, it's like a wise story. He's a very wise man.
Perfect. Do you have a favorite sports team?
What was that? Sorry?
Do you have a favorite sports team?
Yes, it's a second division football soccer team in Germany called St. Pauli. They're always underdogs, but they're here I guess in America it's the same thing. You always have 2 or 3 teams in one city, and one is the leading one and the other is the underdog. So this is my favorite team.
Perfect. Well, we're almost there. We got 2 last questions. What's the meaning of success to you?
The kind of success that really makes you proud and happy.
Last question. What's your superpower?
I'm a never-ending optimist. That's a superpower, and at the same time, it's like a weakness. But
I think it's brilliant, and optimism is the world needs more people with optimism. It's what helps the things go around and keep growing and building. But Sascha, thank you very much for all your time today. You were awesome. You shared a lot of great information, lots of stories. As I always do, I take a million notes, but brilliant. I loved it. So much great stuff in there. I think it's very helpful, and of course, we are huge fans and support all the help you're doing to give back and help the early stage companies make their way through the ecosystem. And the way we like to end our show is that we want to give you the last word. So anything that you want to say to investors or to startups, I turn it over to you. But again, thank you very much for all your time today.
Thank you very much to you as well, and for being here. What I would say, investing in startups is not a very profitable business as an angel investor. Okay, that's the first thing. So become a business angel only if you really enjoy working with startups, learning from them, seeing innovation, being very close to innovation, and somehow create some profitability around that, because angel investment itself is not profitable. Yeah? It's only profitable if you see all the value it gives back to you. Yeah? The big money is made where the VC funds are investing in Series A and B, when all the risk is taken out. Okay, so you have to enjoy risk. You have to enjoy pure innovation, and you have to enjoy, also being on the ground where innovation happens.
Love it. Sascha, brilliant. Thank you very much again for all your time today. We'll certainly be following your journey, and keep up all that great work you're doing with the startups. Thank you again for your time.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Okay, that was fantastic. I think Sascha just brought it all to the table today. There was so much great material there, and just to touch on a couple of things, I love just the way he's been working on giving back. I think the approach that he does by investing and jumping into the company and working with them at the same time, I think that's pretty valuable in getting these companies off the ground. Obviously, the whole piece about being complementary to the founder and when he started his companies and making sure that you had somebody to work with that was complementary, that's huge. Knowing when to get out of a long sales cycle and figuring out how to shorten that down, I think that was pretty valuable as well.
And again, a lot of great things that he talked about, and from team and cash first, and making sure that you do have a leg to stand on when you start your business. So again, great listen. So thank you, Sascha, again for sharing, and we'll be looking forward to staying in touch again in the future. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or Stitcher. You can also check us out at supportersfund.com, or for any startup events, visit opn.ninja. Have a great day. Thank you.